Another of the people recognised today is Melbourne's longest-serving lawyer. Well into his ninth decade, Brian Bourke is still working. Over 60 years, he's represented some of Victoria's most vulnerable people and some of its most colourful criminals.
Brian Bourke can often be found with his nose in a brief, but there's no stuffy formality at this Melbourne barrister's chambers. Since the 1950s, he's been defending some of the city's most notorious criminals, among them Ronald Ryan, a thief who was sentenced to death after killing a prison officer during a jailbreak in 1965.
I just broke out crying, and I've got this bloke holding me by the left arm saying, "Listen, you've done everything you possibly could for me. Don't worry. I know how to go to the gallows."
Ryan hanged on February the 3rd, 1967, the last case of capital punishment in Australia. Since then, Brian Bourke has represented pedophiles and gangland figures. Nowadays, he's most likely to be working pro bono for lesser-known characters.
Well, I think barristers charge too much money. I think the law now has got to a point where it's almost impossible for people to get proper representation.
He's also being recognised for his devotion to the South Melbourne Football Club, bringing legend Norm Smith over from Melbourne to coach the team in 1969. A year later, the team made the semi-finals for the first time in 15 years.
Just to play in the one final, to be there in September and have 104,000 people, I can't say thank you enough.
During extensive world travels, Brian Bourke met African-American entertainer Harry Belafonte and US writer Ernest Hemingway, who was on a plane leaving Cuba in 1959. When he learned of the Queen's birthday honour, the Republican in him hesitated, but when the family approved, he accepted.
The family's very honoured. I think we're all sort of chuffed in a way that he's been recognised, and we know that he's put in a lot of time and effort, not just in the law but in football.
The celebrations will continue tomorrow when Brian Bourke turns 88. Karen Percy, ABC News, Melbourne.